And joining us now is Loyola Law professor Jessica Levinson. Good morning, Jessica. Now, we want to, of course, talk about what's been going on. Do you think that we have ever seen this type of event with someone using terror to target a specific political party like this?
We absolutely have seen people who are domestic terrorists who have a specific partisan and or political bent. So I do not think it's unusual that when we have a bomber and or attempted bomber, they would have an ideological bias. And in this case, it's against Democrats. But I don't think that part of the story is what's unprecedented.
Well, many people, of course, are blaming President Trump, saying that he needs to tone down his rhetoric a little bit, that he's legitimizing and giving people license to do this kind of thing. But of course, a lot of people are saying President Trump can't be blamed for the actions of one crazy guy.
So I think both of those things are actually true. So did President Trump send bombs to these people? Absolutely not. Did he call this guy and say, you know what would be great?
Right.
No. But what he has done is for years now is he has adopted a tone and described certain people as, for instance, Maxine Waters, low IQ, CNN, fake news, and the enemy. So there are consequences to doing that. Did he pick out this person and say, I want you to send bombs? Absolutely not. But it is true that the unprecedented part of the story is having the President of the United States call out other elected officials, members of the media, and say they are the enemy. They are the problem here in America, and we should do something about that. And I think what's also remarkable about this is that in his rallies after we saw that the packages were being sent, that the rhetoric, while toned down, did not change. So you can imagine either President Bush saying something like, anybody who hears my words and thinks this is what I want, you are absolutely wrong. Do not misunderstand. But what we see for President Trump is last night, chants were the same. Lock her up. CNN is fake news. Block CNN. So the rhetoric really has not changed in substance, maybe a little bit in degree.
What do you think President Trump's advisors are telling him to do right now?
My guess is what they often tell him to do, which is, can you please tone it down? Let's try and pivot to a different story. Let's not say in rallies what he said last night, which is this is taking momentum away from Republicans in the midterms. But I think if something we've seen from President Trump is he trusts himself more than he trusts anyone else. And sometimes that calculation is absolutely right. A lot of his advisors were telling him to change his stance when it came to the 2016 election, and that was a very successful strategy. So I think he hears his advisors and then he goes with his gut, and I think he does that in every situation.
Now, you mentioned the midterms, of course, we're just 10 days away. How do you think this week's events will affect the ballot box?
My guess is that it will inflame both sides. So that the people who are supporters of President Trump will say, why are they vilifying him? This is a crazy person, and this just shows how unfair the media is, and we have to get out there and vote Republicans. I think Democrats will say, this is the logical consequence of what he's been saying for years. He's been inflaming the public, and of course there was going to be a violent outgrowth as a result of that. So I think people on both sides will be driven to the polls. The question, of course, is always two questions. How does it play for the people in the center? And how does it play for the people who aren't sure if they want to get out to vote? And of course, anybody who says we know the answer to that really doesn't know the answer to that.
We'll wait and see. All right. Interesting insight as always. Thank you, Professor. We appreciate your time.